It's Eric again. Hey, I wanted to talk to you today on the Drag Racing 101. Today I want to cover the rest of the track. Last time I talked to you, I believe we got up to leaving the starting line. So today we're going to cover the 60-foot and all the timers up until the point where we get down to the traps and the shutdown area. So I have a couple of visuals I drew up, so let's take a look at these, okay? So here, what we got is my poor excuse for visuals. Last time we were at the starting line. So let's go down what we're doing here. So we left the line last time I talked to you. Now you see here there's the 60-foot timer. That would be, when you look at the track, you see the first orange block. That's what that one is. That's your 60-foot. What your 60-foot timer is going to tell you is it's going to let you know how good your car is working. In that it's going to tell you, are your tires grabbing? And you want your 60 foots to be consistent. If you have a 60-foot time, let's say your first pass, you have like a 1.72 60-foot time, and let's say you go up your next pass, you have a 1.70, even a 6.9 or a 6.8, the car is working really good. If you have something drastic, like let's say you have that 1.74 again, and you go up your next pass, you're at like maybe like a 1.9, maybe even a 2.0, your tires are slipping, something's not working. So basically that's what 60-foot does. 60-foot's going to let you know how well your car is working, okay? Now, you see here it says transition. You're like, Eric, what the hell is transition? Okay, let me explain quick what transition is. Transition basically is where the track turns from concrete to all asphalt. And that could be at any place. That could be 100 foot out. As far as I know, and somebody, if you know the answer to this, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, there's not an NHRA standard on how long the concrete launch pad has to be, as far as I know. If somebody knows something else, please let me know through comments or something. But usually, I think 100 foot, I think, was what a lot were doing, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So if somebody knows the answer to that, if they could let me know. I tried looking it up, I couldn't find anything, and I believe I remember it was 100 foot, but I'm not sure. So anyway, transition. The important thing about the transition, not necessarily how far, but just know that the transition is where the track changes from all concrete to asphalt. Okay, so now we're going to move up here. We're at the 8th mile mark, and if you don't mind, I'm going to put this here so it's just easier to look at. You have your 330. Okay, which again is a timer, lets you know how your car is accelerating, okay? And then you also, next, it would be your 8th mile timer, okay? 8th mile, they run a lot of that down south. Up here in Pennsylvania, there's mostly quarter mile, but I know down south they do a lot of 8th mile racing. So obviously, 8th mile is going to tell you, hey, your car is going to run this in the 8th mile. If you would decide that, hey, we're going to go down south, or if you normally run at a quarter mile track and you want to go somewhere where it's an 8th mile, you have your time there, so you can use that to help dial the car in. Okay. Next is your 1,000 foot. Now anybody knows there's 1,320 feet in a quarter mile. So at the 1,000 foot, I like to think of that as important because that's usually decision time. And decision time, I mean, if you're bracket racing, okay, now, as you're making your pass down the track, you should be looking over at your opponent during eliminations to know if you need to lift, drag the brake, run it out the back door, if you need to dump them. And these are things I'll explain as we move along here. But I try to make that decision around 1,000 foot, maybe before, what I'm going to do. If I'm going to hit the brakes to close up the margin of victory, because I don't want to take too much stripe, because you could break out by going too fast. Or if it's one of those, if the guy's catching me already at the 8th mile, chances are he's gonna break out. So what I would do is just run hard, and right about here I'll hit the brakes real hard and dump him. And then what'll end up happening is he'll run under his time because he's trying to beat me. And then at 1,000 foot, I'll dump him. And then he'll just take the win and break out. And then usually I won't run my number, obviously, because I hit the brakes. But at least I didn't break out and I end up getting the win. It's kind of tricky, but it makes sense. Now, here's something I learned. I didn't even know this. This block here, I always wondered, why are there two blocks? There's one before, and then there's one in the middle. Obviously, this is the quarter-mile one, so that's your timer for the quarter mile, which gives you your ET in mile per hour. But what I didn't know, I looked this up. This block here, believe it or not, is a mile per hour block, and it said 66 feet out from where the finish line is. Now, what's relevant about the 66 foot is they need that. It's a speed trap. So in other words, when the car goes by your mile per hour beam, it sets a timer, okay? And then when you get to here, it shuts off that mile per hour timer. So it needs 66 feet to measure how fast your car is going. And then obviously this shuts off the timer that starts all the way when you left the line here, okay? So this shuts off both timers. Your quarter mile, or the last block, shuts off your mile per hour, which is 66 feet out from at the traps, and shuts off your ET timer. So that way you get both mile per hour, your ET, which are obviously displayed here. Your elapsed times usually on the top, mile per hour on the bottom for both lanes. That's kind of like a quick thing. What I would like to do, if you don't mind, I have one of my time slips there, and I'll kind of explain kind of what's going on here. Okay, so this is my lane. So here's your 60 foot, a 167 60 foot, your 330 elapsed time, so that way you can kind of get an idea how this thing's running, you know. And then there's your 8th mile. Your 8th mile is 8 seconds at 84 mile an hour. So if I was to go like down, you know, run an 8th mile track, I could run, you know, I would dial like at 8, an 8 like 03 or something like that for my dial. I always like to leave 2 in the bank. By that meaning, if the car goes 8.0, maybe I'll dial an 8.02 or 8.03. That gives me room to, you know, a little bit of wiggle room. And then of course your 1,000 foot, when 1051 at 1,000 foot. And then there obviously your quarter mile ET at 12.6, 107 mile an hour, almost a 12.61. So that's basically what that is. It gives you your increments down to time slips, so you can see, hey, you can look at your mile per hour, look at your ETs as they're coming down your time slip. Say, oh, okay, so I was a 167. Took me 5 seconds to go to here, you know, to the 330, 8 seconds in the 8th mile. Okay, that makes sense. If you see something that's drastic, like, hey, the car went, you know, covered the first couple markers pretty well. And then let's say you get to the top end and all of a sudden there's like a huge gap. That doesn't make sense. Okay, what's going on? Am I losing traction at the top end? Is the motor missing? Am I having a transmission issue? Things like that. So those are things to just check out. And that's what the timers do. And then obviously after the quarter mile is shut that area, which is pretty basic. What I do not recommend doing, unless it is at least for my combination, not to put it in neutral, because what ends up happening is when you put it in neutral, the centrifugal force could cause the drums inside the transmission to crack, break, whatever. So usually what I'll do is I'll just lift and I'll just let the car decelerate on its own. Unless it's a real short shutdown area, then I'll hit the brakes. But usually I just let the car decelerate on its own. So that's kind of a quick overview of the pass, of how to make a pass, what different things are, different aspects of the track. My last video covered the staging lanes, starting line, burnout box, that kind of thing. This was more or less a lot of area we covered in a short period of time. Hopefully it kind of makes sense. It makes more sense when you get out and do it and you actually can see it as you're going down the track. But hopefully this helps you understand a little bit better. So anyway, that's that. And I'm going to get going here. So hopefully you learned something. Please like, subscribe if the video. And like I said, that earlier thing with the transition, if there's a standard for that, somebody comment, let me know. And then that way I can pass the information on and let people know. Also, check me out on Instagram at EricSnyder26. And everybody take care of each other, and we'll talk to you later. All right, take care. Bye-bye now.